We are thrilled to be back, and it's another wonderful Wednesday. We've got
Yep.
intuitive eating principle number 8
Yeah.
that we are diving into today.
I am going to risk to say that this is my absolute favorite principle. Yeah,
Wow.
I
Okay.
absolutely love this. I think that this is going to be really emotionally charged. I
Mm.
think that Evelyn and Elise did a really
Yep.
good job on this
Completely agree.
principle, and I think we're going to take it to the deeper level.
That's what we're known for.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really good. So,
So one of the things that I um, oftentimes will encourage my clients to think about, because it's a lot of times people know that they're supposed to do what we just talked about,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And even breaking it down into stages,
Hmm.
there still is this struggle, this resistance,
Hmm.
right, to embracing your body self in this more self-respecting way.
Hmm.
And when that happens, what I like to do is to really kind of open up this awareness that just like your emotional self kind of has a backstory as we're starting to do the deeper work and we're starting to understand what yourself has experienced through your life's path and journey.
Hmm.
Everybody has a story. Okay, so similar to your emotional self, your body self has also had a story. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think that the more we can then start really opening up and increasing our awareness to what has my body self lived through,
Hmm.
that then has resulted in its current state.
Hmm.
Okay. And I say that with no judgment.
Hmm.
We really then can start getting a greater sense of compassion and empathy and ultimately respect
Hmm.
for that body
Hmm.
as opposed to this judgment, okay, based on just the current state or the status.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It just went through my mind. Of course, I love metaphors and analogies. Is, people who maybe are rude or disrespectful or don't follow the law make really bad
Mm-hmm.
choices. And it's so easy to just kind of size them up right away and say, oh, they must dot, 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 and
Mm-hmm.
not really have compassion or empathy for them.
Mm-hmm.
But then you take the time to get to know them,
Yeah.
right? And you hear their story.
Yeah.
Um, and you start to make sense out of why they're at this place in life, why they struggle so much with this, or why they're, showing up this way. And it makes sense. And you
Right.
naturally start to feel this
Right.
empathy and this compassion, like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it. And wow, like I don't want to judge in
Yeah.
this critical way.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense. So
Yeah.
it kind of came into my mind as you were talking about that with the body. It's
Yeah.
like the more we can bring curiosity and
Yeah.
compassion, how many times do we say
Yeah.
that, to the table and
Mhm.
really be open to the
Right.
story of our body, we can't
Yeah.
help but feel respect and then love
Right.
for our
Right.
body,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
It's really touching.
And compassion. So, I think about stories in chapters, right?
Mm.
And I feel like the story of your body has really three primary chapters, and that is the emotional chapter,
Mhm.
okay, the behavioral chapter that is oftentimes a result of the emotional
Mhm.
chapter, and then the physical. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the physical of like past and kind of, innate, but then also,
Mhm.
kind of the things that have happened to it,
Mhm.
current things like medical issues and
Mhm.
disorders,
Mhm.
in the current state.
Right, right.
So let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
those three chapters.
Yeah. So
Okay.
starting with the emotional chapter
Yeah.
of your body has a story, right?
Yeah.
There are so many emotions
Yeah. Yeah.
that come up around our body cells. I
Right.
mean, like what our member was saying with fear and anger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have all kinds of experiences, and I just invite each of you to kind of, go into your
Mhm.
own story and notice what are the emotions
Yeah.
that are there for you today, but
Mhm.
even going back in time,
Yeah.
to important moments and chapters in your life
Yeah.
where there was a lot of
Yeah.
emotion around your body.
Yeah, let's say you were born into a family, and a family where your body was open to comment,
Mhm.
okay, by people that, whether they thought that they were doing right by you or not. If you were a 5-year-old and you were a little bit overweight, was there a comment about your body?
Yeah.
Was there a comment about should you be eating those cookies or should you not be eating those cookies?
Mhm.
Was there a comparison between
Mhm.
yourself and a sibling?
Mhm.
Maybe an older sister or a younger sister,
Mhm.
right? And your body was somehow thought to be okay to make comments and comparisons, all
Right.
right, which becomes part of your body's emotional story.
Right.
It no longer is this neutral kind of entity that just houses your soul.
Mm.
It becomes something that you have to be aware of
Mhm.
in this way, where then there's a judgment
Right.
that gets imprinted on your body's physical mass.
Well, I think their shame and their judgment and
Yeah.
their criticism and their messaging of somehow your body is not good enough according to their ridiculous standards,
Yeah.
then unfortunately becomes the emotional story of
Right.
your body. My body is shameful.
Yeah.
My body is judged, negatively.
Yeah.
My body is not good enough,
That's
right?
right. That's
And
right.
then it holds all of those emotions, and there is a mind body connection.
Mhm.
When those emotions are being held in your body, they will manifest
Right.
in lots of different ways
Yeah.
over the course of your lifetime, whether it's disorder or disease or low self-esteem or depression. There's so many ways in
Yeah.
which our body holds those feelings and then has to kind of deal with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You got it. Another emotional component that many, many bodies experience is having been violated
Mhm.
sexually.
Mhm.
Okay. And whether this is, God forbid, in childhood or in adolescence or even in adulthood.
Mhm.
Okay. This is an emotional experience that gets connected to your body self that
Mhm.
absolutely is going to affect your body's state
Mhm.
currently.
Mhm.
Okay. And how can you not have compassion, okay, and empathy and
Mhm.
hopefully respect for a body that has experienced that kind of emotional process, all right, which is going to be an inherent interwoven part of that body's eventual physical state.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
profound piece of the story.
Yeah.
Again, that brings up tremendous emotion. I mean, you and
Yeah.
I are trauma
Yeah.
therapists. This
Yeah.
is, you know, unfortunately, that this is the work we do all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have the privilege of getting to walk alongside people as they heal
Yeah.
from this. So I
Thank
always want
goodness.
to add that piece because
Thank
that's what
goodness.
makes this work possible.
Right. Right.
Um, but the tremendous amount of emotions
Yeah.
that come along with any type of abuse
Yeah.
or neglect, but especially sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It's I think the grossest
Yeah.
violation, gross in the
Yeah.
emotional gravity of
Yeah.
it, that a human body could ever have to endure. And we
Yeah.
have to just be incredibly
Yeah.
respectful of that emotional process.
You
It
got it.
deserves the most
Yeah.
respect and love.
Yeah. And I'm glad you used the word that I was going to come back to, and that is violate. Okay. And that is a darn hard word, but it's an accurate word. Okay. Violate.
Mhm.
Because that is what happens in abuse and trauma.
Mhm.
Your body self is emotionally and physically and sexually violated,
Mhm.
but it is emotionally violated.
Right.
And therefore, that body self is going to have consequences that is
Mhm.
based on that emotional experience.
Right.
Okay. And darn it, we have to understand that,
Mhm.
okay, as we start looking at the body self,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. If you
Yeah,
don't, you will be stuck in your own process.
yeah,
I mean, you just will. If those emotions don't get metabolized and processed through,
yeah,
they will hold you back
you
for
bet.
sure.
Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath here because we are talking about really poignant processes as we're talking about this concept of please respecting your body self and understanding that every body has a story.
Mhm.
We are risking to say these really hard
Mhm.
truths, and we're doing it out of respect for the body self. Because I happen to have a lot of compassion for people's bodies because I know all too well what the body goes through as a
Mhm.
trauma therapist. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you really understand that, how can there be any judgment?
Right.
Okay. Not that there was prior, but I can't hold any judgment for
Mhm.
whatever state that body is in. Okay. When you
Mhm.
know that there are direct consequences to what that body has been through. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the
Okay.
next chapter,
Okay.
yeah, I'm catching my breath.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is
I
this
know.
is
It's tough
tough work.
stuff. It's tough stuff. So the
Yeah.
next chapter is behavioral. Okay.
Mm.
And so as we're all feeling this emotionality in response to this really deep and honest conversation, guess what? If you're not comfortable with emotions, if you're not comfortable with this depth of authenticity, which most people who haven't had healthy emotional role modeling and healthy emotional family of origin systems to deal with this
Mhm.
depth, right,
Mhm.
of emotional material, guess what? You are behaviorally going to find something to
Mhm.
deal with this emotion
Mhm.
that your psyche and your body and yourself are experiencing from some of this story,
Right.
okay, in your history. And a lot of times that is going to be through the use of food.
Mhm.
Okay. So, this level of emotion that you might be feeling right now as an adult, think about what you felt when you were
As a
younger.
kiddo, right?
Okay. What the heck do you do with this? This is big stuff. I need to be comforted. I need to be calmed down. I need
Mhm.
something right now to
Mhm.
distract me because holy cow, that was just intense. I'm going to reach for food.
Right, and I need this emotion to go away.
Yep. Yep.
I am too young. My brain is not developed enough.
Yep.
I don't have anybody here to help me. I'm sitting alone in all of this tremendously overwhelming
Yep.
emotion. And, just a quick side note, there are a lot of experiences we go through in childhood
Yep.
that have the potential to create this type of distress.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
certainly abuse and neglect
Yep.
are high on the
Yeah.
list, but
My dog just died,
oh,
right?
sure. I
You
mean, there
know,
are just countless
the
things.
teacher unexpectedly left, and it was my favorite second grade
That's
teacher.
right. That's
Okay.
right.
A friend just was a mean girl to me.
Right.
Okay.
There are so
Yep.
many places where, we feel very, very intensely. And a
Yep.
lot of this does go back to childhood because we experienced those feelings at a time in our own development
Yeah.
where we couldn't handle them.
Right.
Okay. Like your
Right.
brain isn't even physically fully developed until age
Yeah.
25. Can you believe
Crazy.
that?
Crazy.
25.
Yeah.
So you're going through these big experiences. I know we both
Yeah.
have kids. We watch our kids
Mhm.
go through really big
Right.
experiences. They're not necessarily, I mean, they're certainly not abusive or neglectful, but
Mhm.
they're traumatic for our children
Mhm.
because they are very emotionally intense and
Yeah.
distressing, and then they need the scaffolding and the support of
Mhm.
parents and teachers and grandparents and loved ones to help them through. Their brains aren't capable of computing and processing all that's going on inside of their little brains and bodies.
Yeah.
So there are so many experiences that you can have as a younger person and also into adulthood. It's not like at 25 suddenly things don't cause that kind of emotional
Mhm.
distress, but you need different things to help you regulate the incredible emotional intensity that your body is holding.
Right.
And we've said this so
Mhm.
many times, food is an age
Yeah.
appropriate drug of choice.
Mhm.
All right.
that becomes wired,
Yes.
okay, and gets carried forward. So
Mhm.
even though you have developmentally or chronologically advanced this early wiring that was super effective,
Yes, it
okay,
was.
emotionally, biochemically, okay,
Mhm.
um, gets just really solidified in
Mhm.
your emotional coping foundation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that is why it's so easy to boom, go
Mhm.
right to that.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's other behavioral things that will be part of your body story too. So
Mm,
there will be the use of food. And then maybe that also gets coupled with, sitting on the couch and
mm,
watching TV when you're 12 years old, right? And then you find yourself doing that as an adult. It could be that you just kind of become very reclusive, on the weekends when you don't have to interact with people and you just kind of pull away and escape
mm,
into your little corner. So
mm.
there's lots of behaviors that are a part of your body story
Yeah.
in response to these incredibly intense emotional experiences that at the time you didn't have the coping skills and the relational resources to help you through them. And that's what becomes the trauma.
Right. In response to behaviors, in response to, and to me, that deserves respect.
Mhm. There's a
Okay.
reason, right?
There's not only a reason, but your psyche has unconsciously found a way
Mhm.
to make you psychologically survive when there's no other coping mechanism. Okay. That is where that compulsive use of food comes in. It starts in the earlier parts of your life most of the time, and then it does continue in adulthood. And even though you might be a very capable individual, right? Great job, maybe you have a
Mhm.
PhD, maybe you're a lawyer, right? Have 5 kids that you are managing at home,
Mhm.
okay? Very capable adult, but guess what? Your psyche at that time of early overwhelm and no other internal resources developed this compensatory way to help you survive,
Right.
okay? Helped you to survive. You have to respect that,
Mhm.
okay? And now your psyche is still doing it because it doesn't know that there's all of these other resources
It
now,
hasn't gotten
okay?
the system update.
It hasn't gotten the system update, right? So, so to understand that backstory, right?
Mhm.
To understand the behaviors and how they came about and to respect it, that doesn't mean we might not want to change it,
Right.
okay? But to hate yourself or to hate your body because of doing those behaviors that ultimately helped you to emotionally survive
Mhm.
doesn't make sense.
Or to hate the behaviors, right? That
Yeah,
you shouldn't do, or
right.
that you've learned how to do something different. You've learned all the distraction skills. So, what's wrong with you that you're not using them?
Yeah,
We have to respect those behaviors and
yeah,
why they're here and the emotions that prompted them
yeah,
and the absolute incredible nature of the human psyche to find some way, somehow, with the limited resources you had at that
yeah,
time to find a way to keep you going.
yeah, yeah,
It's remarkable,
yeah, absolutely. Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
that folds into,
Well, that folds into the physical,
mhm,
right? And
yeah.
so when we talk about the physical story that your body has, number one, I mean, I think that in response to what we're talking about, there's
Mhm,
a physical consequence, right?
mhm,
And I say it like that because I say it without judgment. But your body is going to be a result, right, of the emotional processes that you've lived through, the behavioral compensation that has
mhm.
stepped in to try to help you to survive. And then, of course, there's going to be a body physical kind of um, repercussion or just even
Just outcome or
response.
yeah.
A
Mhm,
plus B is going to equal C. And I,
mhm.
again, don't mean that in any negative way,
Right.
right? It just is what it is. It's your body self then becomes a byproduct of those two things. So we
Mhm,
have to understand that, okay?
mhm.
Without judgment,
That's right.
okay?
Right.
Without judgment.
And rejection and ridicule and criticism.
That's right. Okay. There
Mhm.
has to be understanding, has to be understanding.
And I think when you, or I'll say when I work with clients and we really start to go through this work of peeling back the layers of the body and the story, there's tremendous grief that bubbles up.
Mhm.
And, there is a lot of sadness about what has been lost to the behaviors, what has been lost to the emotions that then drove the behaviors, and what was lost in the experiences that led to the emotions that led to the behavior that led to the
Mhm.
body. And we want to be so respectful of grief and really hold a space for yourself to feel anger, to
Mhm.
feel sadness and all of the loss, because it's in the feeling of those emotions that then you kind of clear things out inside of you that then make it possible for you to step into this place of respect and say, okay, that's my story from back then. And
Mhm.
now, with love and respect and gratitude, I'm going to make some different choices here and kind of steer myself and my body self in a bit of a different direction. But I'm not
Mhm.
going to do that with judgment. I'm not going to crack the whip and berate myself. I'm going to be so kind and compassionate about my story and how I got here, so that I can then
Mhm.
start to move through that grief and then create a different, kind
Yeah.
of next chapter
Yeah.
of the body story.
Really, really important.
It is.
Really, really
And I
important.
think too often, sometimes grief can get, if it's not honored as grief, and just allowing yourself to feel
Mhm.
kind of the pain of what has been lost, because
Yeah.
maybe you didn't know all this stuff back then. I mean,
Mhm.
how many times do we hear, gosh, if only I had known this
Right.
20 years ago or learned this 30 years ago, I could have saved myself all of this struggle.
Right.
And yeah, that's real grief. And
Yeah.
we've got to have a space for that. And if we don't, sometimes that grief can even get stuck,
Mhm.
right? And it can kind of sit in this place of like self-loathing and rejection.
Yeah.
So I just want to normalize, if you find yourself feeling that, that's totally okay.
Mhm.
Like, hold a space and let yourself cry and, feel all the feelings that come with this new awareness
Yeah.
of compassion for your body story. It's in the processing of that grief that you actually will expand open a space for yourself to be able to then move into
Oh,
making loving, healthy change.
yeah, and a space where then you embrace yourself with loving self-respect, okay? And loving body respect, which is really the starting point of healthy change.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has to come from that place. We always say that change is best when it comes from a place of self-love. Okay. I am wanting to support myself in whatever way is your desire or need, coming from a place of self love, okay,
Mhm.
not self criticism, not self rejection, but as a way of like self care or self love. And again, I'm going to emphasize what we said at the beginning of this video. We're not advocating that there has to be change,
Right.
but so many times people do come to us. I mean, that's probably why you're watching this video. That's why you're in
Right.
this community, because you are seeking out some change. And change is not bad. Change does not mean that you are necessarily rejecting yourself. Change means that you are actually embracing and loving yourself in a way that you say, there's some things in my life that I want to
Mhm.
work on changing so that I treat myself in a way that feels better for me. All right. And we want that to come from that place of
Mhm.
self love. And we believe that that is best done when you come from a foundation of understanding your body story, your self story, and you give yourself the love and the compassion and the support that your heart would very likely give to others.
Mm. May I propose, maybe it's not change, maybe it's growth.
Oh, I
Doesn't
like
that feel
that.
nice?
I like
I was
that.
just thinking, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
am like
really
such
like that.
a lifelong learner. I've always got
Yeah,
a book in my hands
right.
about the next thing that I'm interested in. And I always want to be growing. And
Hmm.
that does, it creates
Right,
change.
right.
But I don't know,
Yeah.
growth to me has like this positive, loving, that's just what we do as
Right.
humans. We don't have it all figured out. We never will. I hope I never have it figured out because
Right.
that would be so boring.
Yeah.
So let's make a commitment to all of us in the community that we keep growing,
Yeah.
and we do it from a place of respect, not
Mhm.
only for ourselves today, but for
Mhm.
ourselves from yesterday and
Yeah.
all that self and that body has gone through. And I encourage each of you in your own ways to really kind of think about your story.
Yeah.
And some of you may want to write it. I know we've got some writers in the group. Some of you may want
Mm.
to paint it out, walk it out.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to connect with our story. And I invite you to just really hold a space in your heart this week
Yeah.
to um, just hear
Yeah.
more parts of your story, right?
Yep, yep, yep. You got it. You got it.
Okay. How did we do with this conversation today? As you
Yeah.
mentioned at the beginning, we're
Yeah.
very intentional with our words,
Yeah.
and this is a very charged and can
Mhm.
be a very challenging conversation.
Mhm.
So, hopefully, you are taking bits and pieces that are helpful for you. I see
Yeah.
in the comments here somebody wrote "The Body Keeps the Score," so
Yeah.
we're reminding you, I think, of
Yeah.
that book by Bessel
Yeah.
van der Kolk. It's a wonderful book for
It's
any of you
fantastic.
who do have body trauma,
Yeah.
or somatics of any kind today that
Mhm.
bother you. It
Mhm.
is a dynamite read for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What else?
Another member says, "Thank you. I took a lot in."
Good.
And
Fantastic.
another member says, "In the first two-thirds of my life, so many people disrespected my body and boundaries.
Mm.
If I tried to respect myself, I was bullied for it."
Wow.
So there's real fearfulness and trauma in being assertive for my body now. I know logically I'm safe, but deep, I'm stuck as constantly afraid what will happen if I set those limits now. And
Yeah.
now I hear Dr. Julie saying, feel the fear and
Mm.
do it anyway.
Oh, I love that. It's the insight is always the first step. And then stepping into that place of saying, okay, like I don't want to repeat the same thing within myself, right? Like I want to be able to say, I'm going to hear myself that this is my experience, that I was bullied or I was ridiculed, and now I'm going to listen to that within myself. I'm going to validate my story, my history. I'm going to allow myself to go through the natural feelings and I'm going to hear that, right,
Yeah,
within
yeah.
myself so that I can heal it and then move forward. So I love your comment because I feel hopeful for you.
Mhm.
Um, and I also hear you taking our words in, which is
Mhm.
wonderful. This is why we share. And having that kind of starting to be woven into your own internal dialogue in a way that maybe you can embrace that and start using that, maybe as a model. Dr. Ashley and I were talking just before the video cast about models that we look at,
Mhm.
wonderful role models. To have a role model is a beautiful thing. I'm always looking at people that I might admire or that I think have things to teach me or,
Mhm. Or that
just
show you what's possible,
yeah, that show me
right?
what's possible and really kind of experience how they approach life. And I love then taking the pieces that fit for me as I evolve. I really like that word evolve,
That's a good one.
uh, so, anyways, thank you so much. It
Yeah.
just, Dr. Ashley and I, this is such a love project for us.
It
And
is.
and it still always like touches my heart when I hear people reflect back the words that we say and
Mhm.
and starting to integrate that into your life in whatever way that fits for you. Like that is why we do this work. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's just really beautiful.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
We're so glad that you joined us today. We hope that this was a really helpful
Yeah.
and inspiring conversation in whatever ways you're needing right now.
Yeah.
Of course, you can always share your questions and comments and
Yeah.
thoughts. And next week we will be doing our Q&A. We've already got two questions in the queue
Yep.
because they're the ones from last week.
Mhm.
that we simply ran out of time. So they will be our priorities
Yeah.
next week. And then any other questions that you are finding yourself wondering about as you're going through your personal deeper work,
Yeah.
please feel free to just drop them in the feed and or send us a message and we'll make sure to add them in. And then we really look forward to answering them. I love
Yeah.
those
I do too.
conversations.
I totally do. It feels like you guys are right in the room with us, and it helps us to really be able to know that we're meeting your needs. So
Very good.
good. Okay. All
Okay.
right. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Keep working hard. Believe in yourself and embrace all aspect of yourself, including your body self,
Mhm.
with love and respect.
Lots of respect.
Okay.
All right. Bye.